Greetings, everyone, from Emergency Rapid Response Team here in Florida. Hope everybody's enjoying their vacation. Right now, we just want to let you know, in the month of May, there are 4 new IS courses in training.fema.gov, the independent study. That's the IS-800.D, the IS-703.B, the IS-315.A, and the IS-317.A. That's the National Response Framework, a most important one which everyone should have by now. The 703, which is a really good one, which is a resource management. The 315.A, the CERT at Incident Command System. Anybody who's in CERT should know that, especially in an emergency rapid response team. Hey, CERT and the RRT are almost exactly the same, except we do a little bit more advanced stuff than CERT does. And the IS.317.A, Introduction to the Community Emergency Response Team. I'm going to be doing those three. I'm going to be doing the 703, the 315, 317 at a different date. Not sure when yet. But today is the most important day, the 800.D. I would like to teach it, and that way people can understand it. It's better to do, when you do the training.FEMA courses, it's better to do have an instructor talk about it, and that way you understand it. As long as you can hear me, you're all set. I'm hoping all this is working as expected. I tested this out. This is my first time doing this. I've been wanting to do this for a long time and starting instructing. So now I finally have something which can be worked on. So we're going to go to the 800.D. So all you do is go to http training.fema.gov/is. Then you do the 800. Then you do the 100D. Do the 800D. So just click the IS-800D. Go like here's the independent study right here on the very top. So I'm just making sure all this works right now. This is my first time doing this. I've been wanting to do this again. I wanted to do this for a long time and teach you people. You'll have the interactive web-based course like usual. Take this course, then take the final exam like usual. Take the final. I'm not going to do the final on live ever. There is no way I'm going to do the final on live for one reason. I do not want to reveal any of the answers. And it's up to you to actually understand this whole entire course. So basically, a course overview, the goal of IS-800.D, Natural Response Framework, an introduction to provide guidance for the whole community within this broad audience. The Natural Response Framework focuses especially on those who are involved in delivering and applying the response core capabilities, including private sectors, partners, non-governmental organizations, NGOs, government officials, community leaders, emergency management practitioners, which is us, first responders, which is also us, because we are SARTEC. SARTEC, okay, if anybody from Florida Department of Law Enforcement is hearing this, SARTECs are first responders. Anybody agrees? Put in the comment, tell them that SARTECs are first responders. Thank you so much. By the end of this course, students will be able to describe the purpose, scope, organization, underlying doctrine of the National Response Framework, describe the roles and responsibility of response partners, describe core capabilities for response and actions required to deliver those capabilities, describe coordinating structures and operational planning used to support emergency response, describe how the stabilization of the 7 community lifelines reduces threats to public health and safety or economic security. Primary audience, of course, National Response Framework is intended to provide guidance for whole community. Okay, but one thing which nobody understands in the state and county, listening carefully, whole community, that means everyone. That means a private citizen to the organization that like us 501c3ers, especially those 501c3 public safety, and that involves everybody, whole community. I completely understand. Volunteering is a hell of a lot better than being paid. It's volunteers save counties and states money because you'll have all these paid overtime people during a disaster. That's why we are in billions of dollars in debt every time there is a disaster. Whole community involvement because you got to bring in the volunteers. Within the broad audience, the National Response Framework focuses especially on those who are involved in delivering and applying the response core capabilities, including private sector partners, non-governmental organizations, government officials, community leaders, emergency management practitioners, first responders. Again, we are Sartex, we are first responders. So, what I said, recommended. Okay, those are prerequisites. Recommend IS-700. Okay, if you have not done 700, do not do the 800 because without the 100, 200, and 700, you will not understand this. I highly recommend the IS 100, 200, and 700. Now, if you are over 10 years and older, you can sign up for a FEMA SIG card. So if you are 10 years and older, you can sign up for a FEMA SIG card. A FEMA SIG card is what gets you your access into doing the exams. So if you're 10 years and older, get a FEMA SIG card. And parents, if you have children who are 10 and older, I highly recommend you to have your kids learn these courses. You learn these courses, there are 61 college credits in these courses. It's $88. The courses are free. Let's do this first. Training.fema.gov. The courses are free. Independent study are free. Now, if you want to exchange the courses for college credits, it's $88, and it goes through. I forget the website is on there. It will tell you how to transfer the courses. So now you understand that it's when it comes down to this, say $8 for college credits. Now get this: there are 61 college credits. You can have your kids have a degree in emergency management, and right after they graduate from high school, you do the online courses through Frederick Community College. Frederick Community College, you will have. I highly recommend doing this. You'll have your degree in emergency management if you go through. If you do all the courses, and I highly recommend that you do all the courses which require college credits. Now, after you do all the college credit ones, then you do the extracurricular ones, which have no college credits. But all of them do have CEUs, continuing education credits. So this is a perfect opportunity to train and get yourself knowledgeable during disasters and how to handle them. And I've been enjoying this for a very long time. I've been doing FEMA training since 1990. Whoa. Because I was in the United States Navy back in 1995. I've been to the EMI course, so pretty much this is my life right here. Without FEMA, I would have no guidance on how to set up and learning how other people are operating, so that way I can avoid everybody else while I'm doing my search and rescue. Because I'm specialized. We have a group called STARS. That's a special tactics and rescue specialists. So if you want to be a star, and we're all stars, that's what you do. Other than that, I will have periodic breaks. Every time we do a section, I usually take a 5-minute break. So do whatever you need to. I do take breaks, and I train this exactly like a course. The one thing I do want to do, I want to train the E300 and the E400. Those are your 300, 400. Those are your advanced courses if you have the 100, 700, 200, 200, 700, and 800. I like people knowledgeable on this. This framework, This framework is like a very important part. This is like the whole entire key course. I'm going to say this about FEMA. I've dealt with FEMA for a very long time. Prior to 2005, they were a very worthless organization. I'm talking about worthless. They screwed up so many times when they could have been shining stars. Um, but when it comes down to it, their training is outstanding. But when it came down to putting it all together on the field, especially during Katrina, there were total screw ups. Lots of screw ups. Because there could have been a lot more lives saved, and there could have been a lot better, and they could have had a lot better organizational skills. The organizational skills now are outstanding. I highly support FEMA now. I support them 100% now. FEMA is the best organization possible, and you're doing a course, Caroline. Sorry, but you're doing the course. We're just explain. We're just.
I know. You can keep going.
That's my wife, Caroline. Me and Caroline has done all the IS courses. We have done every single one. So in other words, we have basically 61 college credits each from FEMA, and we like keeping up to date. You always need to stay up to date on the courses. And right now we have a no cell phones, no TV, no other laptops, and no cell phones, or try to say dumb phones, because they are definitely not smart at all. They make people dumb. And text while drive and cause major car accidents. So you will find this fun, enjoyable. We like making fun of FEMA all the time because FEMA is a place to make fun of. I wish we were curse on here, but this is a family-friendly channel, and it has children, so there is absolutely no cursing, except sometimes they will come out me because, hello, I was a sailor. So I have a mouth of a sailor. Okay, so let's get down to it. You hit the interactive web-based course. You hit that, you get this nice little thing with the IS-800.D, Natural Response Framework. An introduction. Course overview. This course provides an introduction to the Natural Response Framework. The course is divided into 4 lessons. To help you keep track of your place in the course, the current lesson title will be displayed in the center of the screen under the course title. In addition, a lesson list will be presented at the beginning and end of each lesson. Now remember, this course could take approximately 3 hours to complete. And of course, you can always select and receive a printable version of this course. But hello, you do not want to print 95 pages. It's a waste of paper, and it will probably go in the garbage. So, because it would definitely go in the garbage because a lot of people do not have recycling places at all. Especially here in Florida, there's no recycling, so it's better to save the paper. The only thing which you print is your diploma. Or if you want to save even more paper, you just print up your transcript when you're done with all the courses. I highly recommend when you do the transcript, you better get done all the mandatory courses which you want to take, which have college credits. So let's go to 800.D and go on to page 2. I always make fun of this. Use a glossary. This is the same thing over and over again. So I got to just go plugins and whatnot. Okay. Plug it in. Navigating using keyboard. Below are instructions for navigating through the use of keyboard. If you do not know how to use a keyboard, please go back to school and go back to the 1st grade or even kindergarten, because even kindergartners know how to use a keyboard now. Okay, receiving credits. Students must complete the entire course and pass final exam to receive credit for the course. Okay, I'm going to give you a heads up on this. When it comes down to the final exam, I hate to even say this, but you don't have to take the course. You can just go right to the final. Said it, said it. But I hate saying it. And so one thing which FEMA should start doing is tracking down who has done all the courses. In other words, done all the things. I went through every single course, done it exactly like this with Caroline. Said it, and then I did mine first, and then she did her course. And of course, I scored better. I love doing the FEMA courses. They are, how should I say it? When it comes down to the FEMA courses, they keep you on track. They keep you in the know-how. They keep you intelligent and sharp, and that way you don't screw up during a disaster because you go like this. Wait a minute, didn't my instructor say this? And I'm doing the exact opposite, and find out I'm doing it backwards, and I do it the way the instructor taught me. That way, if I screw up, I blame the instructor and say, hey, I did exactly book by book. Here's the video, and here's everything I did, play by play. This is what happened. So, in other words, the instructor cannot screw up on this. Um, when it comes down to it. The 800 is an independent study. In other words, I don't even have to do this, but I'm actually doing it for you. Because it's better to have somebody to talk about it, talk about the course, and actually hear it and see it, and probably have a story about it. And trust me, I have tons of stories, especially on Moore, Oklahoma, back in 1999. So let's talk. This is a very important video, so let's play it. Okay, we are back. We're having some technical difficulties, but we are all set. I'm trying to still figure out how to do all this, but everything looks good. Um, the only thing which I made a mistake on was the stream options. Okay, seems like everything's all set and we're up to the purpose. Okay, the purpose of the natural response framework, the NRF. One thing I do not like saying acronyms or anything like that because it's jargon and NRF could mean something completely else like nuclear reactor frostbite. Yes, nuclear reactor frostbite. So I always go natural response framework, or I do not use abbreviations or acronyms. I do not like them at all because when it comes down to FEMA, um, so one thing I love about FEMA is, how should I say it? They don't use jargon and they don't use acronyms. They say straight up natural response framework. For ARC, so-called American Red Cross, for all I know, ARC is also the Ark of the Covenant, or Noah's Ark. So I try not using any type of jargon or whatnot. I talk plain English, which everybody should do, because even 10-4 could actually mean something completely else, especially when those are coming from different areas. So even with radio signals, you speak plain English because the reason why you're in a disaster. You have people coming in from out of state. You have multi-jurisdictional. When it comes down to multi-jurisdiction, you will have uh, one one signal going. Okay, it's what are you talking about? We don't use that term our in our workplace or our precinct. So it's best not to. It's better to speak plain English during a disaster, natural or man-made disaster. So let's get back to this. I like talking about my experiences and whatnot. So that's something which you should know. I say natural response framework. I don't say NRF, even though it says NRF. It should just be natural response framework. Is a guide to how the nation responds to all types of disasters and emergencies. The National Response Framework is built on scalability, scalable, flexible, and adaptable concepts identified in the National Incident Management System, NIMS, or that could be the National Institute Medical School. So, like I said, I started staying far away from acronyms like NIMS. I just say National Incident Management Systems because NIMS is in the United States Navy too. And it's at NMC, it was at NMC, but I don't know where they moved to now. The term response, as used in a National Response Framework, includes action to save lives, protect property and the environment, stabilize the incident, and meet basic human needs following an incident. The execution of emergency plans and actions to enable recovery. Check this link to access a copy of the National Response Framework. I highly recommend. I'm not sure if the link is working or not. Yes, the link is working. So they talk about the whole. They talk about the framework, resources inside the frameworks, and whole community approach. Okay, that whole community approach basically means that everybody is involved. not just the first responders, not just the police, not just the fire, not just the SARTEX, not just the volunteers of the American Red Cross. It's everybody within that community, the people who live there, the households, the individual citizen. That's whole community approach. It's that which I love about FEMA now. They finally get it. But now you know that the framework that I highly suggest you get a copy of it, print it out, and have a copy. If you know a bookbinder, better yet, try getting a PDF of it. And make it into a book. It's highly recommended because it's one of those things you always will need to pull out eventually. And I've got hundreds of FEMA books now, thanks to FEMA. Thank you very much, FEMA, for all the lovely books. I am reading them right now, currently, and I am learning a lot from them. So stuff which I never knew even existed. So pretty much that's it right there. Actions to save lives, protect property and environment, stabilize incident, and meet basic human needs following an incident. Siva, have you been copying from emergency rapid response team? I highly want to know that. Okay. Course goal, the goal of the course is to familiarize you with the natural response framework and the ways it's applied in actual response situations. Natural response framework explains how, at all levels, the nation effectively manages all hazard response. It describes specific authorities and best practices for managing all types of disasters and emergencies, from small incident to the largest catastrophe. Course objectives, terminal objective. At the end of this course, the students will be able to describe how the natural response framework is applied to manage all hazards response. Students will be able to describe the purpose, scope, organization, underlying doctrine of the natural response framework, describe the roles and responsibilities of response partners, describe core capabilities for response and actions required to deliver those capabilities, describe coordinating structures and operational planning used to support emergency response, to describe how the stabilization of the 7 communities' lifelines reduces threats to public health and safety or economic security. So, relationship to the natural incident management system. The response protocol, the structure described in the natural response framework, aligns to the natural incident management system. Please, FEMA, do me a favor. Don't use acronyms because it means something totally different where I come from in the United States Navy. So, the natural incident management system, all the components of the natural incident management system support response, including resource management, command and coordination, communication and information management, standardizing natural response doctrine with the natural incident management system, provides a consistent nationwide template to enable the whole community to work together to protect against, mitigate, respond to, and recover from the effects of incident regardless their cause, size, location, or complexity. The natural response framework incorrectly uses the term management and coordination. And view the natural incident management system again document. So it's something which you got to read. Um, okay, what is resource management? Resource management comes from equipment, hardware, and the individual, or even the volunteer. It's everything. Resource can mean a wide variety of aspects used in a disaster, and mainly is when it comes down to resources, which people always need, is the volunteer. And I highly recommend, if you are a volunteer, get with the organization, which is a 501c3 like ours, volunteer, because that way you can get, because you, as an individual, cannot just come down and volunteer. Yeah, I guarantee you, FEMA probably knows who you are, who is able to get the job done, especially through certifications. And we have Me and my wife Caroline, we have over 300 certifications, all about disaster. We know every aspect of disaster, and we just know how to do one thing: saving lives, changing lives. It's the whole entire core of the rapid response team. Um, so just remember, resource is just not equipment or machinery. It's also the individual. That's something which you will find out in the IS 100, 200, 700, 800, and all these other lovely courses in the independent study. Intended audience, natural response framework is intended to provide guidance for the whole community. Within this broad audience, the natural response framework focuses especially on those who are involved in delivering and applying the response core capabilities, including private sector partners, non-governmental organizations, the NGOs, uh, government officials, community leaders, emergency management practitioners, first responders. Government resources alone cannot meet the needs of those affected by major disasters. All elements of the community must be activated, engaged, and integrated to respond to a major or catastrophic incident. By providing equal access to acquire and use the necessary knowledge and skills, this framework is intended to enable the whole community to contribute to and benefit from the national preparedness. This includes children, older adults, individuals with disabilities, and others with access and functional needs. Those from religiously, racially, and ethnically diverse backgrounds, people with limited English proficiency, and owners of animals including household pets and service and assistance animals. So everybody is involved, including the disabled. If you're disabled, you can still contribute to the community. That's the whole thing about the whole community involvement. If you can't speak English proficient, guess what? You can still volunteer and be part of that whole community involvement because you can speak with other people in your language. United States is a mixing bowl for a reason. We are a very diverse nation. And that's one thing which everybody gotta understand. We are a nation based on all ethnic backgrounds working together as a whole for the community of one. Something which everybody forgets. Republicans, drop your conservatives. We were once abolitionist Republicans, and I am an abolitionist Republican. So, I hate, I don't like talking politics, but I do not like both liberals or conservatives. Everybody should be an abolitionist. And scope, the response mission area focuses on ensuring that the nation is able to respond effectively to all types of incidents, ranging from those that are adequately handled with local assets to those that are of catastrophic proportions and require marshaling the capabilities of the entire nation. The National Response Framework describes the principles, roles, and responsibilities and coordinating structures for delivering the core capabilities required to stabilize community lifelines. It further describes how response efforts integrate with those of the other mission areas. Select, this, select the link to review the full text of the scope section of the NRF, the National Response Framework. Oh, my voice is dying. Why the framework is always in effect. National Response Framework elements can be implemented at any time, any hazard, including the employment of the Emergency Support Function (ESF) mechanisms. The structures, roles, and responsibilities described herein can be partially or fully implemented in the context of a threat or hazard in anticipation of a significant event or response to an incident. Implementation of the National Response Framework structures and procedures allows for a scale response delivery of the specific resources and capabilities and the level of coordination appropriate to each incident. Everybody should know what that means, so we'll go on. Now, as review, the National Response Framework is intended to provide guidance to the whole community, disabled whole communities, to benefit from national preparedness. In this context, whole community includes what? Children? Of course. If you are over 10 years old, you can actually do all the independent studies. Just sign up for a FEMA SID card, get a FEMA SID number, and start doing the test. That way, as a 10-year-old, you can start earning your college credits. Religious leaders, of course, because they are part of whole. Disability individuals, yes, they too are part of the whole community, and the pet owners. So if you don't have all those marked, because that is the correct answer. Children are a very crucial source of information. A lot of them have a know-it-all attitude. Well, let them know it all in emergency management. Teach them these courses. Especially you as a parent, it is your responsibility as a parent to teach these kids these courses, because know why? When there's a disaster in your area, your kid will probably know a lot more than you. Children are our future, and our future is in emergency management. Part of a broader strategy to better understand how the National Response Framework fits into the overall national preparedness efforts, we need to look at the National Preparedness System, NPS, and the National Preparedness Goal. The NPS, National Preparedness System, was developed to provide the approach, resource, and tools to aid the whole community and its preparedness activities to achieve the national preparedness goal. Part of the system involves determining what capabilities are needed and how they should be developed and sustained and how they should be delivered. Okay, heads up. When it came down to this COVID-19, this coronavirus, you did not use the tools to aid the whole community in its preparedness, and you have failed drastically. When it comes down to toilet paper, you didn't need all that toilet paper. What were you going to use it for? It's like when you're preparing for a disaster, you do not need all this unless you're planning on distributing to the community and helping out the community. If you do not help out the whole community involved and became a hoarder, you are the problem. I don't like saying it, but you are the problem if you are a hoarder. When we get our bottled water, we love Aquafina. Pepsi Company, you had a fine job with Aquafina and how you made it, because that lasts for years. I actually drank a 2-year-old bottle of Aquafina, which I found it still tasted the same as it was first made. So I love Aquafina. Aquafina is probably the best thing for you. So Pepsi, I'm going to give you a shout out for Pepsi when it comes down to Aquafina. So huge shout out to Pepsi and Aquafina. And I would like to give a huge shout out to Throwback Mountain Dew. Real Sugar Mountain Dew, and another shout out to the Pepsi. Real Sugar Pepsi. Gotta love Real Sugar. When it comes out of Real Sugar into soda, that is better than all this artificial stuff which they put in soda now. So, always remember, if you have kids, make sure you don't give the kids chocolate milk. There's more sugar in chocolate milk than in Pepsi. So, Aquafina, Pepsi, and Throwback Mountain Dew, best thing possible. Real Sugar Pepsi, to be exact. So, if anybody from Pepsi, we would love you as a sponsor for us, because we love Aquafina, we love our Real Sugar Pepsi, and our Throwback Mountain Dew. So, send us more. We need more. Okay, so when it comes down to this is something new, which they just started, this National Preparedness Goal. National Preparedness Goal prevents an integrated, layered, and whole community approach to preparedness. The goal itself is a result of contributions from the whole community and recognize that everyone can contribute and benefit the national preparedness efforts. A secure and resilient nation with the capabilities required across the whole community to prevent, protect, against, mitigate, respond to, and recover from the threats and hazards that pose the greatest risk. Okay, we've had that a long time ago. That's been one of our core things in emergency response team for the past 20 years. So if whoever is on FEMA probably stole from us, give us credit because we've been doing that for over 20 years, and you just started this. Mission areas and capabilities. National Preparedness Goal defines what it means to be for the whole community to be prepared and for all types of disaster and emergencies. The goal is a secure, resilient nation with the capabilities required across the whole community to prevent, protect against, mitigate, respond to, and recover from the threats and hazards that pose the greatest risk. The goal sets the vision of preparedness nationwide that identifies the core capabilities necessary to achieve that vision across 5 mission areas: prevention, protection, mitigation, response, and recovery. And they've always had those, except for one thing. They should put in a nice big circle and write preparedness, prevent, protection, mitigation, response, recovery, and then disaster because it all starts over again. So the mission area and capabilities. Keep in mind that the 5 mission areas aid in organizing our national preparedness activities and enhance coordination of the core capabilities within each mission area. Notice something about this. It's a lot more simplified because know why? It's called whole community because children are also involved, which is why you have it simple. In emergency rapid response team always up doing things simple. Successful achievement of the national preparedness goal will result in a secure and resilient nation with the capabilities required across the whole community to prevent, protect against, mitigate, respond to, and recover from the threats and hazards that pose the greatest risks. I highly recommend you get a copy of the National Preparedness Goal because it is one of the best things to read. So let's take a closer look at each mission area. Each mission area comprised of the capabilities required for the accomplishing the mission function at any time before, during, or after an incident and across all threats and hazards. The mission areas are not sequential activities from multiple mission areas can occur simultaneously. Prevention. Prevention. The term prevention refers to those capabilities necessary to avoid, prevent, or stop a threatened or actual act of terrorism. Prevention capabilities include but are not limited to information sharing and warning domestic counterterrorism and preventing the acquisition of or use of weapons of mass destruction, WMDs. Protection. The term protection refers to those capabilities necessary to secure the homeland against terrorism and man-made or natural disasters. Protection capabilities include but are not limited to defense against weapons of mass destruction, WMD threats, defense of agriculture and food, critical infrastructure protection, protection of key leadership in events, border security, maritime security, transportation security, immigration security, and cyber security. Mitigation. Term mitigation refers to those capabilities necessary to reduce loss of life and property by lessening the impact of disasters. Mitigation capabilities include but are not limited to community-wide risk reduction projects, efforts to improve the resilience of critical infrastructure and key resource lifelines, risk reduction for specific vulnerabilities from natural hazards or acts of terrorism, and initiatives to reduce future risks after a disaster has occurred. And I'm going to say this, governors of states when it comes down to mitigation, especially when it came down to this coronavirus, this COVID-19, you violated every single oath you did when it comes down to the protection and defense of the United States Constitution. You should not arrest people just because they violated a quarantine. Because know why? Anybody could have gotten it. And it doesn't have to be because of the quarantine. And you cannot stomp on people's rights when it comes down to a natural disaster. Let people work. Let people volunteer. Let people help other neighbors. Just because you like having your overtimers work. Trust me, you're wasting taxpayers' money by having overtimers. Bring in the volunteers. And stop arresting people for violating curfews. If they're working and help try and make the community a better place, let them work and let them do their job. That's what Mike Borda said 25 years ago when he created Emergency Rapid Response Team. Back then it was called Border's Team. Borda said this: federal government has zero right to intervene in making a curfew or martial law during a time of disaster because this is a time when neighbors should be helping neighbors, not the government arresting people helping neighbors. Response. The term response refers to those capabilities necessary to save lives, protect property and the environment, and meet basic human needs after an incident has occurred. And meeting basic human needs does not mean arresting people if they violate curfew. If they're not breaking any criminal law, let them be on their way. They're trying to recover from an incident. And they usually try staying not from being they try very hard not staying underfoot of recovery efforts. And recovery, the term recovery refers to the capabilities necessary to assist communities affected by an incident to recover effectively, including but not limited to rebuilding the infrastructure systems, providing adequate interim and long-term housing. For survivors, restoring health, social and community services, promoting economic development, and restoring natural and cultural resources. Of course, they have select this area and select this access to preventable version of the 5 mission areas. I always say this: you should always have those 5 mission areas on hand because those are very important. Core capabilities. Both the National Preparedness System and the National Preparedness Goal discuss the development of capabilities needed to ensure a secure and resilient nation. These core capabilities are the way we can measure, describe, and implement our security and resilience techniques. The National Planning Frameworks, one framework for each mission area, discuss how whole community efforts build, sustain, and deliver these core capabilities. Throughout this course, we will focus specifically on these core capabilities. These capabilities are discussed in detail in Lesson 3, Core Capabilities. Core Capabilities 2 of 2. Under all 5 mission areas, prevention, protection, mitigation, response, and recovery, there are a combined total of 32 core capabilities. These capabilities are highly interdependent and require us to use existing preparedness networks and activities to coordinate and unify efforts, to improve training and exercise programs, to promote innovation, and to ensure the administrative, finance, and logistics systems are in place to build, sustain, and deliver the capabilities. There are a number of key characteristics of these capabilities that you should remember. The core capabilities are distinct critical elements necessary to meet the national preparedness goal, are essential for the execution of each mission area: prevention, protection, mitigation, response, and recovery, provide common language for preparedness across the whole community, and are not exclusive to any single level government organization and encompass the whole community. So again, government, whole community, learn it, live it, breathe it from now on. Bring in the volunteers and bring in the individuals and the households, and especially the children who are over 10 years of age, because they have probably done the independent studies. So, more information regarding the National Preparedness System, National Preparedness Goal, and core capabilities can be found in IS-2000, National Preparedness Goal and System Overview. So, I highly recommend you take that course, the IS-2000. Um, it, I actually love taking that course. It was a really decent, well-made course. Um, I'm trying. I'm going. I like doing an average speed. I don't like going too fast or too slow. I like going just right, and remembering all the good times and even the worst times of emergency rapid response team, where especially during 911, we lost over 30 of our volunteers and those who were our huge donors. So I'd like to give a huge shout out to our old directors of emergency rapid response team who helped get our team functional. Whole community preparedness. Preparedness depends on efforts at all levels, including individuals and communities, the private and non-private sectors, faith-based organizations at all levels of government, local government, regional, metropolitan, state, tribal, territorial, insular area, and federal. The contributions of all must be integrated to preparedness efforts and needs all must be addressed and planning for the development of the response capabilities. Whole community it includes individuals and families, including those with access and functional needs, business, citizen-based and community organizations, nonprofit groups, schools, and academia, media outlets, all of government, including state, local, tribal, territorial, and federal partners. More information on whole preparedness can be found in a whole community approach to emergency management, principles, saves, and pathways for action. And that is an excellent read. Fema, you have done a marvelous job again on creating that book, which a lot of the ideas were stolen from our team. Thank you so much, Fema, on that, but hey, we don't mind. National Preparedness System. National Preparedness System is an integrated set of guidance, concepts, process, and tools that enable a whole community to meet the national preparedness goals. The system is made up of 6 components shown in the graphic area on the right. More information is available on the website for the National Preparedness System. Identifying and assessing risk, estimating capability requirements, building and sustaining capabilities, planning to deliver capabilities, validating capabilities, and reviewing and updating. So, and that's the whole community. That's natural incident management system and the core capabilities. So just learn the triangle. Whole community preparedness example. Experience shows one of the best things the whole community can do. Be prepared to provide on universal accessibility. Simply means planning to get the needs of the whole community by providing physical access, communication access, or access to disaster or emergency programs. This and there are legal requirements that dictate the inclusion of persons with disabilities during whole community preparedness efforts. One way to ensure this example is incorporated into planning to establish a core advisory group, CAG. Core advisory groups consist of people with cross disabilities who advise emergency managers. They provide input on inclusive emergency operation plans, including local jurisdictional or state accessible evacuation plans, temporary accessible housing plans, accessibility to, of, and in shelters. National Response Framework to assist response partners in effectively carrying out the rescue mission. The National Response Framework identifies capabilities that are essential for response to community lifelines. Stabilization indicates the action necessary to build and deliver the required capabilities, describe key roles and responsibilities for integrating capabilities across the whole community, outlines how the response mission area relates to other mission areas. So, The Response Federal Interagency Operational Plan at the federal level, National Response Framework, is supported by the Response Federal Interagency Operational Plan. The response by the Federal Interagency Operational Plan further defines the concepts, principles, and structures and actions introduced in the National Response Framework, with a focus on federal level. The response Federal Interagency Operational Plan goes into more depth in the National Response Framework on how agencies work together on response and how they support or complement activities to take place in the private sector and at other levels of government. The intent of the FIOP is to support local, state, tribal, territorial, insular, area, and federal government plan to ensure a common operational focus. Each mission area has their own federal interagency operational plan that describes how the federal government aligns resources and delivers that mission's core capabilities. More information can be found at FEMA.gov Federal Interagency Operational Plans. Okay, which of the following is a benefit of implementing the National Response Framework structures and procedures? Scaled response, level of appropriate coordination, formulating communication to media, or delivering specific resources. And of course, it's one or two things. It either could be a scale response or the level of appropriate coordination, and I believe it is the scaled response. Nope. Level of appropriate coordination. When it comes down to sometimes when it comes down to it, it's how it's worded. Sometimes it can be a scale response, and then of course it can be the level of appropriate coordination. Scale response and level of appropriate coordination is basically the same if you look at a different way. Okay, which of the following are characteristic of core capabilities? Are distinct critical elements necessary to meet the national preparedness goal or essential for the execution of each mission area, prevention, protection, mitigation, response, and recovery, only to be used by federal or state during an emergency or provide common language for preparedness across the whole community. It's these three. The reason why this is wrong, only to be used by federal and or state government agencies during an emergency, is whole community approach. Federal and state is now whole community. Correct. So, guiding principles for response. Now that you have a general understanding of the National Preparedness Doctrine and the context it provides for response mission area, let's take a closer look at the principles on which response doctrine is based. Response doctrine defines basic roles, responsibilities, and operational concepts for response across all levels of government and with private sector and non-governmental organizations. It's important to remember that the overarching objective of response activities is ensuring life safety, protecting property and the environment, stabilizing the incident, and providing for the basic human needs. Stabilization of the 7 community lifelines reduces threats to public health and safety or economic security. Let's review 5 guiding principles that establish fundamental doctrine for response mission area. Engaged partnership, tiered response, scalable, flexible, and adaptable operational capabilities, unity of effort through unified command, readiness to act. Engaged partnership. Effective partnership allows engaging the whole community in preparing for and responding to disasters or to manage risks to communities and infrastructure. If anybody is having problems with state government, they are not an effective partnership. If the government does not do whole community, they're in it for the money. They are in it for the community, and they're in it to take away the taxpayers' money and put it into their own pocket. That is not an engaged partnership. It's not an effective partnership. If you don't involve everybody in the whole community, you are not an effective partner and you are putting people's lives in danger. Because that one individual could probably know a lot more than that emergency manager in that county or that state. Those who lead emergency response efforts must communicate and support engagement with the whole community by developing shared goals and aligning capabilities to reduce the risk of many jurisdictions being overwhelmed in times of crisis. Their mutually supporting capabilities of individuals, communities, the private sector, NGOs, and governments at all levels allow for coordinated planning in times of calm and effective response in times of crisis. Now let's take an example that demonstrates the concept of engaged partnerships. Engaged partnership example in wake of the tornado that hit Joplin, Missouri in May 2011. Every available agency or resource was deployed to assist their response and recovery from the devastating event. A wide array of private businesses participated in that effort. Home improvement stores delivered relief and camp supplies that were contributed by other private sector suppliers. These businesses also partnered with the commercial airline to fly in volunteers. Utility companies teamed up to restore power more quickly to the area. A telecommunications company provided wireless equipment to local emergency officials. A development firm worked with Joplin State Council to attract private investors for reconstruction projects. Through this whole community approach, government businesses coordinated their efforts to begin the response and rebuilding process in Joplin. Tier response. A basic premise of the national response framework is that incidents are generally handled at the lowest jurisdictional level possible. Incidents begin and end locally, and most are managed at that level as well. Many incidents require unified response from local agencies, the private sector, and non-governmental organizations. Other incidents may require additional support from neighboring jurisdictions or the state. A small number require federal support. National response protocols recognize this and are structured to provide additional tiered levels of support. When all levels of government become engaged, a response is federally supported, state managed, and locally executed, with tribes, territories, and insular area. Governments often managing the response as well. So like this thing as an example of tier response. You got the local response, local first responders, NGOs, private sector, and families. So the local response, local first responders rescue stranded residents and neighboring jurisdiction, contributed personnel and equipment to the effort. Neighbors helped neighbors salvage their belongings, and a temporary shelter was opened in a local school to house displaced residents until they could return home or find accommodation with friends and family. Food and other types of assistance were provided by non-governmental organizations and private sector donated. Daily resources as rain continued, the flooded areas expanded. Greater numbers of families were displaced and more communities along the river affected. There were widespread power outages and neighboring jurisdictions were no longer able to contribute assistance because they had similar needs close to home. Local response agencies' resources were overwhelmed and assistance from state was requested, state assistance. In wake of continued severe weather, a levee upstream gave way and flooding quickly expanded, affecting a huge area. When the state's resources were no longer adequate to address the needs to such state-to-state assistance provided through the Emergency Management Assistance Compact or EMAC. The Emergency Management Assistance Compact will be discussed later in this course. Federal assistance finding the state's ability to manage the expanding incident was overcome, and they requested federal assistance to provide additional resources and help coordinate the response. Flexibility of tiered response made it possible to respond at lowest possible jurisdictional level and expand the response effort as the needs of the incident require. Later in the course, we will take a closer look at the mechanism through which a tier response such as this is implemented. So just remember, tier response, you got the incident, you got the local response, the local first responder, NGOs, private sector, individuals, families. Then you got the state tribal resources, state to state and regional resources, and then you got the federal resources. And then the tier response example in Illinois, mutual aid for multi-agency or multi-jurisdictional response is provided through mutual aid, box alarm, the MABAS, equipment, personnel, or services that are provided under the MABAS agreement are shared between municipalities at no cost. In the event there are expenses recovered from the responsible party, these funds are equi- equitably distributed. In addition, emergency personnel who respond to the emergency remain employees of their initial department or agency. The mutual aid box alarm system may be activated for larger incidents under Illinois Emergency Management Agency's statewide mutual aid plan. Statewide plan allows the resource deployment to a stricken area while levying at least 80% of local resources in place to respond to ongoing routine local emergencies. The mutual aid box alarm system is organized in divisions roughly along county lines, and the vast majority of firefighters in Illinois participate in the system. Several surrounding states, Wisconsin, Iowa, and others also use the mutual aid box alarm system. And the groundwork is being laid out throughout the Great Lakes region to establish a compatible mutual aid system modeled after the mutual aid box alarm system. Scalable, flexible, and adaptable operational capabilities. As incidents change in size, scope, and complexity, response efforts must adapt, meet evolving requirements. Number, type, and sources of resources must be able to expand rapidly to meet the changing needs associated with a given incident and its cascading effects. National Incident Management System concepts and principles add this flexibility with dealing with an incident. And the needs and grow and change. Response processes must remain nimble and adaptable. Structures and processes described in the National Response Framework must be able to surge resources for the whole community. As incidents stabilize, response efforts must be flexible in order to move towards recovery outcomes. Scalable, flexible, and adaptable operational capabilities example, based on lessons learned from the 911 attacks in the New York City Fire Department. Established and trained incident management teams. The incident management teams are designed to provide operational capabilities to ensure that the department has continuous coverage during prolonged incidents. Each team member is trained and credentialed to assume specific incident command system functions. When Hurricane Katrina made landfall in 2005 in Louisiana, Mississippi, the New York City Fire Department had enough trained personnel to deploy a full incident management team to assist in response. During Hurricane Sandy in 2012, with the crisis closer to home, an incident management team oversaw the response during and after the storm. The New York Fire Department incident management team demonstrated scalable, flexible, and adaptable capabilities by responding to incidents of different sizes, location, and complexity. Unity of effort through unified command. Success requires unity of effort, which respects the chain of command of each participating organization, while ensuring seamless coordination across jurisdictions in support of common objectives. As a team effort, unified command allows all agencies with jurisdictional authority and/or functional responsibilities for an incident to provide joint support through mutually developed incident objectives. Each participating agency maintains its own authority, responsibility, and accountability. So unified command benefits, collective strategic approach, joint priorities and resource allocation, single plan and set of objectives, improved information flow, and coordination. Your unity of effort through unified command. Example, planned events in Boston can attract crowds of 1 million or more participants and spectators, providing an optimal environment to test and improve disaster plans. Medical planners led by Boston Emergency Medical Services began treating special events as planned disasters during preparations for events such as Boston Marathon. As these organizations evolving and adopted the incident command system, conducted planning and operations using unified command and integrated aspects of the region's disaster plans into the event's operations plan. These preparations provide vital when bomb blasts ripped through the crowd at the 2013 Boston Marathon. Lives were saved that day through the unified united efforts of diverse agencies, medical services, and visual community members. Readiness to act. Effective response requires a readiness to act that is balanced with understanding of the risks and hazards responders face from individuals and communities to the private and non-private sectors, faith-based organizations, and all levels of government. National response depends on the ability to act decisively. Decisive action is often required to save lives and protect property and the environment. Although some risks to responders may be unavoidable, all response personnel are responsible for anticipating and managing risks through proper planning, organizing, equipping, training, and exercising. Readiness to act example. Federal Emergency Management Agency, Incident Management Assistance Team, IMATs, are rapidly deployable emergency response teams, full-time rapid response teams that can arrive at an incident within 12 hours from deployment notifications to support the state and federal coordinating officers in establishing the incident action plan, process, and initial operating facility. Okay, FEMA can do it in 12 hours. They consider themselves a rapid response team, 8 hours anywhere in the country, provided we have the funds. And right now we are low on funds, and so we right now can only stay in the state of Florida at this time. So this hurricane season, we are just staying in the state of Florida. We cannot respond to anything out of state because of lack of funding. So if you want to donate, go right ahead and donate to us. And hopefully, if you can help us, we do need more supporters of this channel. Have people subscribe to our channel. So hit that subscribe button. We need to start doing the monetary because that way we can collect some money, and this channel will all go into disaster response. Thank you so much. IMAT teams support the initial establishment of a unified command, provide situational awareness for federal and state decision makers, enabling them to determine the level and type of immediate federal support that may be required. Take this access to information about IMATs. So, in the correct order, use the drop down for headers from level to highest. So, naturally, when it comes down to the chain of command, first will be the local response. Second, state, then state to state, and then federal. After 25 years, everybody should know that by now. Correct. So, let's only, in this session, you review the national response framework that includes the purpose, audience, scope, organization, and leadership to the national incident management system. In addition, you learned the national preparedness doctrine and the guiding principles. Next is to define the response roles and responsibilities of the response area. So, at that, we're going to take a 20 to 30-minute break, grab something to drink, and relax because we still got 45 more pages. So I'll do a 20-minute break. That way my voice can rest up some and I can talk again. Actually, let's make it half an hour and be back at 6:50 at 18:15, which is 6:15 p.m. So at 6:15 p.m. we'll Eastern Standard Time will resume. That's 18:15. So everyone, let's take a break.